Hey everyone, in this episode of Cinematography Database Show, we're going to be breaking down the cinematography of Interstellar. Now, this is going to be primarily high level, and the more that I do these, the more the high level starts to be more interesting to me. You know, like the why they're choosing to do certain decisions, and then kind of my take on that. We're also going to throw in some B-roll, some behind-the-scenes stuff, and look at some of the technical, but there's a little bit more to the high level on this movie than there was in the B-roll side as compared to Jungle Book, which had a lot of technical stuff that I could really get into, but this one I really think there's a little bit more high level, so we're going to be doing that right after the intro. Okay, so Interstellar, yeah? 2014, so not that old. I know people think that I think movies are old. It's just like time moves quickly these days, right? So if it didn't come out like yesterday, it's already old, or it feels that way. Directed by Christopher Nolan, who I've got a lot to say about on this movie. I've grown up watching his movies Dark Knight and, all the ones after that. Interstellar, pretty phenomenal, and yeah, pretty cool. Shot by, I'm going to go dig through this. This is like kind of I think we all know who shot this. This is let's see if I can get his name right. Someone told me in the comments, sponsored by Angry Birds, of course. There's an Angry Birds ad over his name. Wow, IMDb. I'm gonna have to stop coming to IMDb, all these ads, man. It's Hoyte van Hoytema, I think, right? Sorry, I've never met anyone named Hoyte before, so it was, I had to take a guess on the last one. But Hoyte has had an amazing career. Interstellar is phenomenal. So let's get right into this, into the Photoshop. So here's Interstellar. And I'm going to start by just kind of digging through the behind the scenes really quickly, okay? So here is Christopher Nolan, our director. He's got this really interesting, like kind of lo-fi looking video monitor. It looks like it's SD. Maybe that's what maybe it's because it goes with this film tap. I think that's really interesting. And this is Hoyte right there. And they're in Iceland right now shooting on a glacier, I believe, for the scene where they go to rescue Matt Damon. And pretty interesting equipment happening here. I think most people know that a good amount of this film was shot with IMAX, which is, if I'm getting that right, is 65 millimeter 15 per film. So gigantic image. And the other bit, we'll talk about what camera they use, but we have this very interesting kind of European dolly. I don't know this exact make. You guys can tell me. It seems like a panther kind of like spider dolly. It's a center pedestal on track, pretty straightforward. Everyone's wearing their standard issue movie set iceberg cleats, or at least Christopher Nolan is. And clearly very cold there, and this gigantic IMAX camera. So pretty fun story there that they shot that. Hoyte also incredible handheld work in general. And he was doing handheld with an IMAX camera, which I think has probably never been done before, and it does lend itself to this very interesting aesthetic. I watched a lot of behind the scenes on this from the visual effects side and from the cinematography side, and Hoyte was explaining that, NASA, the whole movie, the design of it and the visuals of it were really based on real-world equipment, real-world things that had actually happened. People have gone to space, and they were basing the design off it, the suits, how he approached the lighting and how he approached the camera work. He said that they brought IMAX cameras into space and they filmed, I don't know what they filmed, like a documentary or something like that. I've never seen it. They showed it on IMAX, and he said there's this certain look of IMAX in space that is historical, that actually existed, and he wanted to go for something like that. Now, in space, the IMAX camera kind of floats around, so it's probably it's probably really difficult to film, I would have to imagine, but you don't have the gravity, at least, of Earth. So he had to deal with gravity. So this IMAX camera is, of course, very heavy. I would imagine semi-short takes, and maybe just a great workout in general. If I carried an IMAX camera all day, like walked a couple blocks, that would be really good exercise for me. I should probably do something like that. Here's the IMAX camera again in a Steadicam situation. You can see that the sun is coming from like this direction, or it's like right here. So they're basically putting the sun like behind them in this shot, and they're kind of looking down, probably framing a shot like this. And not everything is handled, so they wanted to probably mobile sticks here. It's like, look at the terrain, it's just easier to go frame up a shot with the Steadicam. And here is Christopher Nolan probably saying like, hey, look at my hand, look in that direction. They're looking at where the drone is, or the drone flying around in this shot. And really, there was going to be very few B-roll shots, but here's a cool shot of them in the house. I think this is a beautiful photo, whoever took it. And here is Hoyte handheld with a good old Panavision anamorphic 35 millimeter camera. And the focus pulling and the handheld work on this is so amazing. It feels right. It feels real. And wow, he's holding what is it? Some sort of film camera. It looks like a Nikon like F2 almost. I think I own a similar camera to that. Maybe it's a Leica, and I just don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know much about Leica. If you guys are Leica heads, I don't know much on that. And the old Sekonic light meter because you're shooting film. So pretty cool. That's a little look at the context of making it. Here's our boom operator. This is a beautiful photo. This set's really cool. I really like it. Is this a real set outside? Is that real exterior? Little peek of a Chimera here. Looks like a Joker 400 with a small Chimera with DOP choice grids on it, giving it a little hair light. But we are not going to be doing a lot of breakdowns in that level. We're going to look more into the images, right? More of that. So Interstellar, again, this is going to be just full of spoilers. It's going to be an overview of the entire movie. Here's one of the opening frames, and this is very Christopher Nolan, is to give you kind of like a visual metaphor for the entire film right here. I think there's a lot going on here. It talks about seeing the space shuttle, which is, in this point in history, the world has gone to such despair that they can't afford to spend money flying and going into space and exploring. And that's true kind of now and where we are in 2016, that I think NASA has gone private. I don't think it's funded by the US anymore. I don't know that much about NASA. And this reminds me of Tomorrowland, which is a Brad Bird movie, I think. I watched that. Claudia Miranda shot it. I interviewed some people about that movie. And it was a similar premise where NASA is becoming just not valued. And we see that the ship here is on the bookshelf, like literally shelved. And there's debris on it. There's dust on it. And this kind of just sets up the scene. It's like space with this dust on it, like what's going on. You know, I think it's a pretty cool way of opening. And I think Christopher Nolan does a great job of really making like kind of poetry, visual poetry, and telling a lot in each frame. And even these book titles probably mean something, but I'm not much of a literary person to know. One of the first shots we see of Earth, you know, and Earth is a planet. So let's start there. You know, it's our planet. It's the one we live on. So it's like, oh, it's like the human planet, but it's a planet just like the other planets that they go and visit. So I think that's important to see Earth in the bigger context like they're probably presenting it. And where is the horizon? The horizon's right at the top of the frame. And that's very interesting because there's no sky, right? It's just all grass. So you open on it, it's like, oh, this seems like a nice looking thing. It's like these bright green grass corn stalks. It's like, wow, looks like a healthy, beautiful place. And this is Earth. And I think that's the intention at first. And there's wind blowing and you're pushing through it. And there's actually a pretty cool still of Hoyte shooting it. So again, their horizon, they kept it very, 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 very high in their frame. We have one of these Richter fans blowing the wind around, another one over here. And he's on a crane, a riding crane. And he's specifically, you can see how the camera is tilted down. Tilting down is how you push the horizon up. You tilt up, the horizon goes down. The basic mechanics of it, but you can see that this is a very, very, very intentional shot. It's like, oh, it's some B-roll of corn. Maybe someone else shot that. This corn shot, and every shot that Christopher Nolan does has a reason behind it. Every shot, you know, and it's to shoot it on IMAX is to make every shot, if you took a still from it like this, a beautiful photograph. That was part of the intent with this kind of shoot, or on this film. A couple people said that in the behind the scenes, that every shot, if you pull the still out of it, there's even another fan over here. Look at that G.I. Joe looking guy. You know, is to make every shot beautiful like that. And there's a lot of intention in that. So most people would spend like 5 seconds shooting a shot of grass. They put a lot of intent in every shot that they do. It's powerful. This here, and so what happens in this movie, which is interesting, and I honestly, believe it or not, did not notice that they were changing from 16:9 IMAX to 2:35 anamorphic. Throughout the entire movie, I didn't notice it. You know, so, but that's how I didn't read a ton about this movie. Actually, I don't read anything until after. I just experience it. I try to just experience it as a person. I try not to get too breaking down as like what's happening. I try to just like emotionally react to it. And I was so into this movie that I didn't even see them changing aspect ratio. So we're seeing here that this is clearly 240 or 239 or whatever. But we'll see that in this anamorphic format, the out of circles, the bokeh or bokeh in the background are ovals, because that's what happens with a 2-to-1 squeeze. And they're also very prone to flaring, which is the flaring here. And that gives this an emotional feeling. And to me, in the beginning of the film, and when we're on Earth, when they're in anamorphic like this, it feels unstable to me. It feels very painterly and blurry and dreamlike, and I think that that's intentional. I think this gives me kind of like an unsettling feeling, you know, like this is a little bit clearer here, but the extremely shallow depth of field, like to from here to there, which is like a foot is out of focus, 1 foot. Am I right, focus pullers? Is that right? You know, it gives this kind of interesting feeling. I'm trying to communicate that better as we go through this. What is interesting about this to me is that this feels ethereal. It almost doesn't feel like Earth. I mean, it does because it's green on the bottom. You know, it's green down here and it's light up there. So that's very Earth feeling, and it's windows and everything. But this very purple light here, this pink light, feels somewhat ethereal. I guess it's Earth, obviously, but it kind of sets this up that he is in an interesting kind of like, I would say like dream state or like other world. The fact that the colors look like this, this is not like a normal color palette for the world. I wouldn't say, like, normally this would be like orange and be like more green. It's a very blue, semi-desaturated look, and I think he's setting that up. So here we are in an IMAX shot, so it goes to like full 16:9. I don't know what it was in the movie theaters. I didn't see it in the theaters. You can hate me all you want, but this IMAX lens, with the bigger format, you can see how incredibly shallow the depth of field is here as these go off into perspective. How wide this lens probably is. It's still a very wide shot. If you were to shoot this on 35, all this would still be in focus, probably even wide open. And it gives a very beautiful halo and flare around him, or bloom. And the reflection of the sun here. This is a beautiful shot, and it should be beautiful, right? It's green and it's a beautiful pasture and farm, but we see all this dust. And this dust brings this level of desaturation and haze. And I won't harp on it too much, but atmospheric perspective from that. And Hoyte talked about that in one of the interviews, is the fact that Earth has this very lush green kind of past, like this farm crop, the corn and they allude to all these other crops that basically died, that this dust is coming into the world and taking away that color and taking away that life. So the dust represents the Earth dying, essentially, and everything on it dying as well. The dust coming to take away life. Here's their house, very super awesome looking house. I mean, I don't live in this kind of area, so this just feels like it's such a little slice of Americana, and it's just beautiful, right? Like with wood furniture and these dark black wooden frames. I mean, it's beautiful. You know, it's kind of romantic, but at the same time, it's a little bit rustic. Like this would be a little bit rustic for me. But it sets this up. You can see some of the chromatic aberration and flaring happening from this lens, and the extreme shallow depth of field that I think focus is probably about here, like on you, and you're out of focus, and or maybe they're pulling with him, I'm not sure. But this flaring and this bowing of the perspective of the lens, this one's not too bad. It sets up this kind of like handheld, uneasy feeling. We don't feel like that happy about this. It's a little bit off something here. And then this frame here, when these flares happen, it's kind of like Punch Drunk Love, which I need to do a breakdown of. Like these flares, they make me feel. It feels like I'm being like hit with light. I'm just kind of like I want to like kind of look away and block it. It's a little bit offensive, honestly. And this is kind of a harsh environment that they live in. And I think that flaring and this extreme shallow depth of field, it's kind of like if you had like dirt in your eyes or sand in your eyes. You're kind of like I can't quite see what's going on. Things are a little blurry, in and out of focus. I mean, the focus pillar killed it, but I mean, it's like in and out and very flary. It's a little bit of an aggressive image to me. I know that it's very commercial right now, but as far as like it being in a movie, decision-wise, there's this big contrast that happens from the very clean IMAX imagery and this very handheld, real-life anamorphic imagery that's a little bit like aggressive, a little bit like it feels a little bit glary, like you want to kind of like look away sometimes. So here's them on their farm, you know, nice level horizon shot, very static shot here. We see this smoke here, and smoke is a sign of fire. And fire, I think, plays a somewhat of a role in this. And there's no sand in this one, but we do see a ton of dirt, and we do see the green here. So this is kind of like the square one. This is home. This is what home is. We have our house, and we have our car. That's how we get around, and we have the nice green fields. If you didn't know any better, this would seem like a pretty happy scene, but there is smoke in the background. So there's something still happening here, and they're burning crops, and they start to talk about that. This is an interesting use of a horizon again, where this hill is, you're looking kind of like up at a hill, so you don't see past it. And it feels a little bit disconnected versus like, say there were like mountains back here or like a city or something like that. You'd feel like you were on Earth. You would feel like there was something, other people on this planet. But this path, this one path that leads away from their house with this corn, it starts to feel a little bit alien, this frame. To me, this makes Earth feel a little bit weird, you know? They're kind of like really alone, and then they're literally being trapped by this corn, you know? So for him, he's an engineer, he's ex-NASA, I guess, and he's being forced to be a farmer because the world needs food, and all the food keeps dying for some reason. It's the dirt, it's the gravitational anomalies. I don't know exactly why it's dying, but the world's dying. They tell us that. You have to believe it. So this family is basically marooned on this planet in a way, and he can't do what he wants. These kids are like, I guess they don't have like the black lung like some of the other kids have from all the dirt. But they're being trapped by this environment, you know, and they're alone. And it feels like the other scenes in space, you know, where like they're on this planet that's just nothing. They're kind of making Earth feel like that way in this. Now, here's a very feel-good, uplifting moment for the film. You can see it in the color palette. It's like, oh, blue, like, oh, finally, oh. You know, it's like blue skies, green grass. That means happiness. You might as well just have, like, the sun here, like, smiling, like, hey, we're all happy, you know, like, hearts. That's this color palette. Very saturated, very pretty. We don't get a lot of this later on in the movie. They're having fun. They're, like, he's showing how spontaneous he is, how much responsibility he gives his kids, how much he's teaching them, and they're chasing this drone. They almost die crashing into a tractor. That's cool, I guess. If I did this, don't go do this. Don't, Matthew McConaughey, don't give your, how old is this kid, like 15, the wheel and drive through the fields and point a gun at a drone. I wouldn't do that in real life, but you know what? It's a movie. It's fun. It shows Matthew McConaughey's character. This also just sets up Earth as this very pretty, lush place, and it's something that, like, yeah, we want to live here. We want to save that, you know. So we're setting up the home. This is the context, and look at this change from very beautiful IMAX photography to this. Maybe it's still IMAX, but they're cropping it in anyway. And we see the home now in a wide shot, and I think this is something to talk about. Is that the home here is smaller in the entire scene, and I kind of have a thought on that whole thing. Again, a lot of this is just thoughts on the cinematography, on the filmmaking decisions of why I don't actually. There's no real reason. If you don't agree, then don't agree. Completely cool. But I do have a take on this house and how that works. Here's where they experience the first gravitational anomaly, and these robots that are supposed to be out at the field, they all come back to the house. Which I would assume, at first I was like, oh, they have brains of their own. Like, that's what this movie's going to be about. I think they're just resetting. I think that when they get lost or something goes wrong, they just come back to the house. That's their reset. They're just resetting themselves. They don't know what to do. They're lost. They're like, hey, what's going on? In this frame, I found extremely powerful, like really interesting, was that they have this gigantic wheel here. You know, shout out whatever that tire company is, Firestone. But you see this big wheel, and it's bigger than him and her, right? And there's something ominous about that. Like, this machines, it's like they're so much bigger than him, and like he's controlling them, but like they are so much bigger, and if they misbehaved, they could easily just like run you over. And showing kind of like their reliance on them as well. And I thought this was an interesting setup here. As we're moving out of Act 1 here, this is all introduction to the family, like setting the stakes of like, this is home, he's got family, he's spontaneous, but at the same time, you can tell that he's kind of meant for bigger things. They keep alluding to that in many ways. This focal length, this type of lens, what I see here is distortion here. I'm seeing barrel distortion on things that should be straight. Now, certain directors like this and they go with it, like P.T. Anderson or Wes Anderson loves this type of lens, probably even this exact same lens, and it distorts things. But to me, when there are other options like master primes and master anamorphics that do not distort, I don't know if master anamorphics might not have existed when this was shot. You can get lenses that don't do this barrel distortion, but they're choosing it. The IMAX cameras don't have barrel distortion, I wouldn't imagine, on the wide lenses as much. This one does. and it's bowing things. And there's something they talk about gravity, like, so the black hole would take light like this and it's gonna bend it. You know, it takes it in and it bends the light around it. Not I'm not gonna say that that's I don't know anything about physics really, but like, you know, there's something about this, that there's the sun bright source in the middle and everything around it is distorting, and I see that in this lens, and it's flaring, and I think that's, I don't know, this is like a gravitational lens or something. Like, it has like this distortion in it, and the focusing and the way that it flares, it has character, and it adds character to this scene. If you shot this exact scene with a Master Prime 21, would feel very different, very, very different. But they chose that for this feeling that it gives. And then it's the same thing here. We see this lens a lot. Look at this should be straight, but because of the distortion of the lens, the way that the light's coming through it, it is distorted, spherical, you know, kind of like the black hole. Very shallow depth of field with our buddy in the center here, kind of like the black hole. He's in the center and everything's like curving around it. And it gives this, again, like this kind of like ethereal feeling to everything. And that's what anamorphic kind of does. I think the extreme shallow depth of field and some of the distortion, it has a characteristic that we're a little bit programmed to understand as cinematic, but they're using it here really well. This is anamorphic. This is probably more like a 30, 35 or 40 or 50 anamorphic lens. So way less distortion, you know, this is straight. I mean, this stuff, even this straight line here, but it allows us to get a close-up on him. And this is where he first is in that room. And now that we know, looking back at this, if you've seen the movie, that he's in the Tesseract kind of like trying to talk to himself, trying to communicate. And then we kind of get this very bright eye here. And I think when you see eyes in this movie and they really light them up, that there's a reason for that. They light the eyes very specifically. A lot of the scenes, the eyes are very dark, and we'll look at that as well. So that is Act 1, and that is the intro. After Act 3 of 6, we're going to take a little break, and I'm going to show you some fun stuff that has to do with this movie and how you would go approach shooting some of it. So here we are, and we've met our characters, but now we're seeing like the stakes here. There's these sandstorms, and they come and they're making people sick. They're killing crops. People have to go hide. The earth is just dying, just not great. That's what's being set up. It turns into like a horror movie. I mean, look at this scene. Very dark. This yellow light coming through here is very interesting to me. She forgets to close her window, and this practical gets knocked over. I guess they left the lights on too. But we see here with the sand that there's this gravitational anomaly. It's like, why isn't the sand just falling down straight? Why is gravity not affecting it in certain parts and it is in others? Is foreshadowing to, of course, the fact that that's actually him talking to him from the future, essentially. But really cool. I mean, they really set this up as kind of like, this feels, a lot of this movie feels very influenced by Spielberg to me, like the way that light is used, and we'll talk about that in a second when I get to that shot, and the way that it feels like Poltergeist, this scene. It's like, this is the TV with the ghost coming out of it. And this too, with the atmospherics and the practical, it's very like, feels like Poltergeist actually to me. Very warm too, very interesting. I think I don't think there's like, there's a fly in here. Boom, got it. I don't think there's like a ton of like stuff to read into that, so we'll keep moving here. To me, what this reminds me of, and this is looking back at it, and not that everyone goes back and watches movies multiple times, so I think Chris Nolan kind of expects that, is that this grass here, it feels like kind of like the tidal wave on that planet, and I feel like the grass or the corn is kind of like starting to like overtake the rest of the world. This is nature coming back and being like, I am going to take this all back here. And like, if you've played like The Last of Us and like some of those like apocalyptic movies, games and movies, you'll see that like, you know, the earth will just start to take back man-made structures. And I feel like in this frame here, we kind of see that the grass is kind of like, the earth is kind of fighting back. It's kind of just like, we don't want you here. Because they talk about, what is it, the blight or something like that? There's this new thing on earth that consumes nitrogen instead of oxygen, and it's like basically taking over. Kind of reminds me of The Happening with M. Night Shyamalan. Actually, this movie really feels like M. Night Shyamalan to me. Here's a beautiful frame, little dolly shot going this way, just showing the aftermath of, you know, how wrecked this car is. That would destroy the inners of cars to have sand like that over and over again on it. The house is pretty beat up. it just shows the aftermath of what's happening and how like this kind of dirt would kill organics under it. This is also very interesting. Just I think that this coin, it just reminds me of like the infinity thing from Inception. I'm talking about? Christopher Nolan, very good with like the prop. The like these seemingly normal objects, he just gives a lot of meaning to. I think there's a lot of meaning that I'm not going to go into it, but with like currency and kind of like these rows of dirt that are binary or Morse code, kind of remind me of like the crops in the field as well. I don't really have a meaning for it, but I see these like visual metaphors that I think are being dropped in our direction. I think this frame's a little bit off. What I wanted to show here is they go and find the coordinates to the NASA. They don't know it's NASA. They get these coordinates and they go off into the world to go find it. And what is interesting here is that she's in darkness, kind of like when they are in space. And then what happens is like this extremely bright light comes and she screams. They're like, "Stay calm," and she's like, "Ah!" And like it's a funny scene, but look at this, is so cool. Like anamorphic lenses with the dirt on the windshield go oval, beautiful. That light is what we need to see, but too much light is blinding, which is an interesting thing that I think is played within this movie. And it also feels very Spielberg to me to have like the spotlight come on and hit someone and kind of like blind you. It's disorienting, but like, you need it. Like darkness is terrifying because you can't see anything. But at the same time, if you have too much light, you can't see anything. And I think that's interesting, and that's being played with a lot in this movie. An interesting, I don't know what to call it. So here is the first time that they go and see the spaceship. I just thought that this is a cool flare. That's about it. And here's where he's explaining that, the corn will die. And we see this kind of orange menacing light, same as this scene. This is the not good orange light or yellow light. That's what's happening here. Kind of like the low eye light here being uplit. It's not good stuff happening here. Same thing here. Not good stuff. The Earth's being bad. This is where he tells him, he's like, you need to go into space to save your family. And although like what he's saying, he's like, I've got a family, I can't go do that. You see him looking into space the entire time. He's like, I can't go. He's like, I couldn't do that. I have a family. Like, the whole time he's saying that, his body is like, yep, yeah, I want to go to space. And I think that was interesting here. It also says, evil in the frame, and I think this says level or something like that, like level 2. I thought that's interesting, and I thought this body language was really cool. And how much of this is Christopher Nolan and how much is McConaughey? They said that he brought a lot of interesting things to the character, and I think that's what good actors are there to do. I thought that was really good blocking, really cool. Here's where he's explaining to him about the formula, about gravity, about how he can turn that whole building into a satellite, shoot it up into the sky. They just need to know something about something, blah, 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 and he's going to figure it out. But we do see a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit of foreshadowing light here. Very from the top, very hard, not super flattering light. I think that sort of subtly shows a little bit of the dishonesty in this character here. Versus Matthew McConaughey's got the nice hero highlights, overall a soft side light, whereas like he could have had the top light too, but he doesn't. He does. So kind of subtly, it just gives you like this feeling with this guy. It's kind of like, you don't look that good. I like what you're saying. I like you're going to save the Earth. You're saving people. You're doing great stuff, but at the same time, visually, you're kind of like turned off by this because of the way that the lighting is there, and I think that that's intentional. Here, as we start to leave Earth, essentially, what I kind of see in this scene is that that the people in this farm and on Earth in general, here's the moon, they're on their own spaceship, and Earth is its own just deserted planet like the other planets we go to because it's dying. People have died and the crops are dying. That this is their spaceship and they have to live in it. And there's a scene on the spaceship later where he's like, it gets to me, like there's only this like millimeter of aluminum from me and nothingness, and if I went out there, I would die. And I think that that's what's basically being set up on Earth too, is that like as another generation goes by, the scientists are saying that like this thin house, this thin front, and this thin survival you have of this crop, of this food that's slowly dying, that out here is all this chaos of dirt, and if you go outside of it, you will die. I think that's what's being set up visually here and being set up over and over again, is that the Earth is like their spaceship. This house is the space. Earth is like this dying planet, like the other planets, and this is their spaceship. And if they go outside, they will die. That's what's being set up, that this place is not inhabitable. And so whether you're in a spaceship in the stars or in a spaceship on Earth, either way, we're kind of stuck now, and we need to leave. It's not that much better in this spaceship than it is in the other one. Emotional scene where he's saying goodbye. It really interesting. I don't know what to say about this lighting. Is it window? Is it during the day? But what it reminds me of is the lighting in the spaceship, where it's just the sunlight coming right at him. It's very hard. There's no naturalness of this. It's a very like hard 4x4 feeling source, but based on these reflections. And I don't know why. There's something interesting to me about that, about the harshness of the light in this scene, and the very frontalness of it. Very frontal, like right at him. Very nothing hidden. A lot of this movie uses flares and shallow depth of field and certain things to hide, and the lighting that's backlit, which is going to lead to silhouettes. And this is very frontal. It's very raw, the photography here. And this scene is, I think they're just trying to expose it all. It's hard. I mean, you got to really have solid actors to pull that off, I think. Shot of the watches. That's it. Not much to say there. This camera is mounted to this truck, and it's taking off. It's flying away from home. And what's interesting about this is when you see the spaceship shots, is that like if this was Earth, they do really similar shots where the camera's pointing down and it's leaving Earth or leaving a planet. And that's kind of what this is here. And I kind of have another shot of it. It's the same shot with the camera mounted to a ship, and it's leaving, with the camera's going this way. The whole thing's going that way. Same as this one. You know, it's just kind of a cool visual, just visual poetry. Like you can tell that this truck is leaving. There's so much communicated here, even in the still, about this frame, you know. And Christopher Nolan talks about using IMAX cameras like GoPros. That's kind of what's going on, right? So here's ending Act 2, where he's in space, and this is the still that I picked. This was my most interstellar shot of the whole movie, and I looked at every shot. This is my favorite shot in the entire movie. Very cool. And he's in space, and it's flary. Not much to go on there. We're going to go to Act 3, and then we're going to take our break. So we are in space, and now we start to do with space imagery and photography, and this is like in Gravity and The Martian, you know, that sort of thing. And we have our satellite with our docked ship inside of it, and we just see the scale of how big. You can't even see the whole Earth, but you can see the whole spaceship, and it's very small. And we're flying away from Earth. And that's what he's looking at the window. This frame is important. I don't know exactly how to read it, but there's a lot of stuff in it, sort of occluding him, like sort of showing how he's, maybe he has like barriers between him. It's like there's obstacles for her to get up to him, you know. There's obstacles to get to him. I think that's all this is really showing. It's like I gotta like kind of like get through this jungle of stuff before they can have this communication. So they're not on the same page, maybe. Cool rendering of Saturn. That's it. That's it. One of the VFX supervisors talks about loving seeing the shot in IMAX, which I didn't get to do. And he said that you could see the detail. That's the satellite flying through the frame. He said that you could see the detail when you watch this on IMAX. I don't see a lot of detail. And he was lamenting that on the small screen, I think that you would lose something. And yeah, it's a dot to me. I don't see any detail, but I thought that was cool to bring that up. So, and we'll talk about this at the break. They're on a ship that is creating false gravity by spinning. So it's spinning and moving through space, and that's how a satellite space station works, and it creates its own gravity. Like 1G of gravity, I guess, is enough for them. And with that, the sun is basically fixed in space, but they're constantly spinning. So the sun is just constantly coming through the windows. And you'll see it hitting him here as he's watching. He's just woken up from like 2 years of hypersleep or something like that. And you'll see it just like it comes in and it hits him, and then it leaves, and it hits him and it leaves. And it has this kind of emotional metronome that's happening, and it kind of isn't necessarily flattering either. It's hitting him low and then bouncing up, and it's this interesting play of light that just has the sun coming through the scene. And we're going to look at that at the break. Here's where they're deciding what planet to go to. This big flare of the sun. I feel like there's a meaning for it. I don't know what it is, but I think it's a little bit of hope. I think that there's just like, okay, here's the plan. We've made it this far. That's all. Not that every flare has a meaning, but I feel like that might kind of be here. Here's where she's interacting with our guy from the future. We know from watching this now. Extremely shallow depth of field. Now, they spent a lot of money to build this set, so they still put it completely out of focus, like completely wide open, like T19 on anamorphics on like a 35 or 40 or something like that. Oval bokeh. It's a really cool look, but I think emotionally as well, it makes sense. Like we don't see him talking. It's almost like a voiceover because they talk through intercom. So I think she's like very much having like one of those ethereal experiences because she's dealing with like a gravitational anomaly and touching it. We just accept that, I guess. But the anamorphic lenses, they really give you that kind of like isolated, like interesting feeling. At least it does for me. But how do you feel when you watch a shot like this? It gives me a feeling, oh, messy, Matt. So this frame needs to move over. Yeah, you didn't see that. So they talk a lot about this. There's some really good BTS talking about how it took them a year. I'm going to say that again. It took them a year to write the software to generate this imagery because it's based on Kip's theories, I guess, about gravity and what a black hole would look like. And they do a good job a little bit. It's a little bit like the more you know kind of conversation with them kind of explaining gravity and black holes and how that works. But this took a year to make these, not to render it, but the rendering I think was probably gigantic, but to design the software that would properly show and illustrate the lighting around a black hole. So yeah, that's a big investment. So they go to this first planet and they go to the beacon and it's clearly just all water. Now, if I came to this planet and I was like, oh, the entire thing is water, it'd be like, time to get the out of here, especially because they're dealing with relativity where, what did they say? Like 1 hour here is like 7 years or something. Like, why is my handwriting all of a sudden so terrible when I need it to be good? 1 hour equals 7 years or something like that down here. And they get there and it's all water. It's like, we can't live. Let's like, shouldn't you just leave? I don't know. It just seemed like weird to me, but they get to this planet that's all water, and just like this horizon, you just see nothingness. Again, it reminds me of, can I go find it? It reminds me of, what shot? Where are you? This one. It reminds me of this shot. It's like, oh no, that's not working out. Where are you? There it is. Can I compare these two? No, this one. It just reminds me of this. There's just nothing in the horizon. It's just, on this planet, it's water, which is not livable for humans. And on this planet, it's all corn, which is in dust, So I just see like these kind of interesting visual plays together, that these are kind of resonating with each other. You're kind of comparing. So this planet, clearly uninhabitable. I love the robots in these movies. Case and Tars. I don't know the actors' names in the movies, but I remember Case and Tars. That meant so much to me, these robots. Their personalities are so funny. Hoyte, with her, again, with robotic personalities. I mean, that's like his thing, I guess. Just, but these are my favorite part of the entire movie, are the robots. But there's not a ton to talk about with the cinematography of them. But I love that. This water world, man, get off. Why are you staying here? Are you crazy? Like, look, it's beautiful. It's just all water. This is a real location. I mean, this maybe is extended, but this is the water. They shot this in Iceland, and this is apparently this flat area that this is melted glacier water. Global warming. So like, this is a real location, and that's incredible to me. But this turns out to be a bad planet, and this back here turns out to be a gigantic tsunami, which is actually one of my biggest phobias. Is large tsunamis. Maybe it's coming from I don't know what, but I've had nightmares about giant tsunamis, and then I saw this scene and I was like, yeah, with the big wave, I mean, like literally have those nightmares sometimes, which is funny because I live on a beach and I go to the beach almost every single day, at least in the summer. We don't have tsunamis like that, but still, just waves like that are terrifying to me. But this thing goes incredibly south. One of the guys dies really bad. We start to see the humanness of our characters here. They're all these like stoic, like, like go get 'em astronauts, but we're starting to see the humanness of it here. She tried to get the data. That was her decision. And it, more or less ended in not only someone dying, but them spending an extra hour down there because the engines died for a little bit, and they lost an extra decade. So they come back to the ship, and it was 24 years. So the guy that stayed on the ship, he was alone for 24 years waiting for them to come back. This, and they talk about it like this is interstellar travel. This is relativity, you know, like, and I think that goes to the name. It's like interstellar travel for humans is like we only live for like 80 years or whatever, 60 years. Interstellar travel with relativity, the humans just don't last. Like we're this little second that happens, and they're starting to deal with the weight of that, and I think it gives a humanness to all this physics, to all this talk about relativity, about Einstein and what that means. This is like the human part of space and interstellar travel. I think it's very cool, very emotional way. Yeah, he's pissed because they lost 24 years. So his daughter's now, whatever, like 30 or something like that. Actually, I think he comes back and his daughter leaves him a video, and she's like, in that 1 hour, so it was 2 years in space to get to Saturn, wormholed, went to the first planet. They went down for like a couple hours and came back. On Earth, that was 24 years. So now his daughter's the same age as him when he left. And he kind of said that, you know, maybe when I come back, we'll be the same age. She leaves a video being like, we're the same age now. I wish you would come back. You know, sad scene. He's really happy with the sun. Again, the sun with the spinning station just hitting him in the face, going away, goes down, hits him in the face again. Dolly pushes in. You know, not a happy scene, and this lighting is very harsh. And then the anamorphicness, again, I think the shallowness of the anamorphic can be a little bit, although beautiful, it just makes it feel a little bit uneasy. And I think was this handled? I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter. So we find out here, as we're going to come to our break right after this, we only have 2 more slides, that his daughter, of course, went to work for NASA, working directly for the guy that sent him into space. And we're seeing this, they're walking this big arc. Just like the satellite, this is a satellite station, and they're walking in circles. And this is the first scene where you start to question, like, what is your deal? She asks him, she's like, you know, why have you been solving this while you're keeping gravity finite or whatever? She's like, why would you even attempt to solve this like that? This seems like bullshit, dude. You know, and he gets super pissed and he leaves. And we see him in silhouette in his back. You know, this is kind of like an ominous scene. This looks cool. So that is Act 3 of just Interstellar. Really quite an experience, the movie. With the IMAX experience, which I kind of wish I had done. Maybe they'll replay it in IMAX somewhere again. Probably not. You know, that would have been a good experience. So right now for our tea break, we're going to take a little tiny tea break, really short. We're going to look at how you would use 3D and Previs or CineDesigner to start executing some of the photography and planning that would go into a movie like this. And I watched an hour-long interview with the VFX supervisor of this movie, and they talk about how prepared Christopher Nolan is now. Not only is he the director, he's the writer. He said the script that you read when you first are deciding to do the project is the script that makes it to the screen. And he has the vision in his head, and he does everything. When he's on set, they do dailies every day, and he has immediate constructive criticism and reactions to the footage, to the VFX, because he has this clear image in his head of what this film should look like. Emotionally, having actual previs and that sort of stuff, all of it on all levels. And he said, the VFX supervisor, he loves working with people like that. He said that what happens with a lot of technology now is that you leave a lot of the decision making to on set or in post, which is even worse. And you get this mediocrity in the filmmaking and decisions by committee. And he said that he really appreciates about Christopher Nolan the fact that Christopher Nolan knows what he wants exactly. He spends years planning it. He knows what he wants so that when he's on set, he can lead everyone towards that vision. As opposed to having what he, endearingly calls younger directors and how filmmaking is being done now, half visions, which I think is appropriate. I won't even go into that subject about working on set with different ways, but not everyone plans like Christopher Nolan. Not everyone has that in them. But the people that are able to plan, the ones that are able to have the vision, lead that strong vision all the way through, those are the people that make, I believe, the impactful films, and those are the ones that I would love to work on, and those are directors I would love to work with. So that brings us to planning. So I've made a little bit of a spaceship here, really crappy spaceship. And you'll see that we're in Cine Designer, my Cinema 4D plugin. You can learn more about this plugin at cinedesigner.com. This is very new to Cine Designer. It's actually not even released yet. It's coming out very soon. Here is an Alexa XT. Now they shot with a film camera, but similar field of view. And what I've done is I've mounted this film camera, or sorry, this Alexa, to this spaceship. And what we have here is how you would approach shooting certain scenes like this. Now, what we have is a 12K over here. And what I've done is I've animated this spaceship to spin. And you'll see that the camera comes with it. So this is what would happen in reality if you had the sun and the spaceship was spinning. What would the light look like? So we can look through this camera now. And this is in Cine Designer. On the right over here, we can see that the sun goes away to blackness. And then as they come back around, the sun wipes through the frame. Kind of stuff the camera shadow. That's not great. Stuff that you would be able to plan here. So that's what would happen if you actually spun the camera, or spun the whole spaceship with the camera fixed to it, as the lighting would pan through. But a lot of the times what you can do is you can basically get away with this, is you can just do this. This is the same effect. So you can see that I'm panning the light over, and you do that. And then you basically turn off the light, reset it, turn it back on, pan it through again. It's almost the same exact effect. And that's something that you can plan out with Cine Designer. I think it's really strong for this type of on-set planning, is to really concretely plan how the lighting is going to work. So lighting cues, lighting effects, that sort of thing, you can plan it out like this, like how it would happen in reality, and see what that would look like. And then you can also plan out how to do like a cheat, that sort of thing. So that's my quick scene I wanted to make in Cine Designer. Movies like this are almost 100% entirely planned, as far as creative and framing, and also the technical backend, which is what Cine Designer is primarily for, is a lot of technical planning, though it could be used for like storyboarding as well. The reason I use such accurate models of cameras is because this is the actual film back and sensor size of an Alexa XT, and you can change it to open gate. You can use real world lenses. It'll show you what that's going to look like at this distance. And then likewise, the light coming off of this light, if I was to render the scene, which I won't right now, is very accurate to a T12, Area T12. So that's our look at Cine Designer, and that's how we look at kind of filming space stuff in a stage where there's like one sun. It's the sun coming through the stage, like coming through, coming off, coming on, coming off, coming on. They did a similar process where they would do it in 3D with how a real spaceship would look spinning through space, and then they're like, well, how can we do that without spinning the whole set constantly? So that's one use for Cine Designer. Again, this is stuff that people used to have to spend millions of dollars on. Now you can do it in 3D with Cine Designer. You can plan pretty complex stuff in here and have it be accurate. And then you can, of course, export this kind of stuff to your crew to show them the planning. That's the whole power of Cine Designer. I had fun making this one. It was cool. Oh, man. If you're new to the show, the tea break, if it's disgusting, it's necessary because I'm talking for like 40 minutes, so I have to take a break and let my throat not explode. So we're on Act 4 of 6, and the last act is really short, so it's really just these next two. We're not too bad on time here. Here is some of the most beautiful IMAX photography I've ever seen. It's just phenomenal, just so beautiful. This feels like a film response to me, like the way these clouds. I've only shot film a couple times, but one of them was on a rooftop in London with clouds like this, and it does great. Film adds this look, and it just feels really nice, and you get a lot of it for free. So it's very cool. It's kind of like how you could recreate sunlight on a stage, but actual sunlight's so good that it's this film is like sunlight. You know, it's just like it just naturally looks good. You can try to recreate it digitally, but there's just something about it. Something about it that looks great, and I think this movie does an amazing job. Like, look at this still. Look at this still. It looks amazing. Can you imagine shooting your movie and every frame looks like this? Just beautiful. So anyway, I think what happens. I'm not sure where we are in the narrative, if she's lit his field on fire yet, but I guess this is just IMAX Appreciation Day. Just beautiful. Even though this is a beautiful scene, it is kind of sad. They're talking about, the earth is dying, and they know that. And the crops, he's like, next year the crops they're not even gonna be here. That's what they're talking about. Here's a family scene where she comes and visits, which she clearly does not often. They're clearly eating all corn. Funny enough, I love corn. Monsanto corn, it's just like, I would love this corn souffle, and corn on the cob is delicious. My son just had corn on the cob the other day for the first time. He loved it. but that's all they can eat. And it's kind of like oppressive to only eat corn, which is also funny because in America, everything is made out of corn syrup. So there's a little bit of funny commentary here. Really interesting commentary, Chris Nolan. I see what's going on here. Very interesting. But it sets the stage that this dude has like terrible bronchitis or some infection of the lungs from breathing in dirt, and then so does she, like fatal. Like these people are dead. They're not going to last a long time. And his son, doesn't have any options. He doesn't have a solution. He can't leave. There's nowhere to go. Yet he can't protect his family here, and they allude to him losing a son or losing a child. So it's a terrible situation for these people. They're literally all dying. They've been left to die, is what's happening. And we see, again, their spaceship and then, their space that would kill them, their lack of gravity, is this dirt. And they talk about it that if they do survive the famine, that they will suffocate. Because whatever this blight is, apparently it eats the oxygen. Look at me being scientific. And it replaces it with nitrogen. I don't know what nitrogen is on the elemental table. Oh man, why did they even go here? But essentially what's happening is this blue sky, these plants are all dying because the amount of oxygen on the earth is being replaced by nitrogen. So this spaceship, again, eventually there's just nitrogen out here and you're just going to die. So they're going to suffocate just like you would suffocate in space. So if the planet Earth is just like being in space, you might as well leave. You might as well just chance it in space trying to find a new planet. You can't stay here because you'll suffocate the same. So the stakes are the same. You suffocate on Earth or you suffocate in space. It's the first time in my head I kind of got that was what's happening. This guy dies. He dies. And he tells her that he never intended on Plan A. Plan A was to bring the people of Earth into space. He knew that would never happen. He'd been faking the formula. She caught on to that. He told him that he never thought that her father would come home, and he lied to her. So she's upset by that. We now know that there's no hope for humanity. No humans on Earth will ever survive. That's what we're being told. Oh no. She's upset about that. This is where she goes and she tells the astronauts that somehow just text messaging through the black hole, NBD. There's some pretty red light happening. It's motivated by this, but I think there's probably like a red light under here, and this red is very, like evil. Done. That's all we're saying here. And here's TARS or whoever. I love the robots. Relaying that message. So here they are again. Now, these guys are smart, right? Yet they went to the water planet that was all water, and they're like, hey, let's even spend another minute here, because this is clearly maybe worth looking at. And then you come to this planet, and you can just, I don't want to live. Who would want to live in this place? And I guess maybe they're desperate, so it's like, hey, you just got to see what we got to do. And they believe that this Matt Damon's data, which I, from the beginning was like, really, there's somewhere in here that's inhabitable? They've been traveling in space for a long time. You have hope, you have hope that you're going to do this. And they're set up that Matt Damon, who landed on this planet, who they're going to like rescue and talk to, he was the best of them. So it's setting up this expectation that this guy is like this like amazing, sagely person. Yet when they come on this planet, I feel like you look at this and you're like, there's frozen clouds. I don't see anything that's green. I don't see any water. How are we living here? I don't get that. But anyway, they plow forward onto this planet. They go and they wake Matt Damon up. I think, is this a happy moment? I would say no. If we look at the lighting, how it's coming from the back, it's very dark. He's very happy. He hasn't seen people for however many years. He thought he was going to die. He went in the sleep chamber and didn't set a wake-up date. So he was just like, I'm just going to die sleeping in this chamber, and he woke him up from the dead, Lazarus, that sort of thing. But it's like, I think it's pretty clear that this guy is unstable. And the fact that they have this roundtable meeting that's like, oh, everything's great, we're going to live here. It's like, and you see his disassembled robot in the corner. It's like, I don't know. I was immediately like, you're going to live on this planet? I didn't get it. So here's where they actually, TARS is delivering the message that Plan B is the only plan. Never intended to come back or whatever and then save the people on Earth. Always intended to just repopulate and he was lying. And he said that he had to do that so that they would actually go ahead with the mission because they wouldn't have left otherwise. It's probably true. Sad, glycerin in the eyes, a little bit of that low eye light, that sort of thing going on here. She's upset about it. He's upset about it. Now, we're back home. Oh, was it Bryce Dallas Howard? She's in every movie, like Jurassic Park, Martian, right? She's in Martian. She's in everything. She's starting to get empowered, you know, as everything is, that person, Michael Caine died. There's no chance in the world that the smartest guy in the world said that it's not possible to save the human race. She's starting to get this other feeling now. She's starting to feel something, which we find out again is basically her dad with the gravitational pull. I think he's like kind of like, you know, doing stuff with gravity. And she starts to have these flashbacks. And then this is an interesting comparison between the IMAX. I think this is IMAX that just cropped, but I think it's an IMAX capture, how clear it is. And then the past, which is this anamorphic, very shallow depth of field, chromatic aberration look. Just look at the gigantic difference in the images there. Really cool. I'm not a huge fan of the mixing formats thing. I'll have to do a movie like Wolf of Wall Street with Rodrigo Prieto. Is that his name? And movies where they change that. It's like, oh, we're in a different era. We're going to change the look. I've never loved that. But here, I kind of do like it. It's a cool flashback. You know, look at the lighting in this scene. It's really very cool. Horror kind of lighting. She has like black eyes essentially because the way that this is being lit, and you know, there's like light coming through and bouncing here, and that's what this fill light is. Nice, kind of a beautiful rim light actually. You know, these flashback scenes, and they're very ethereal. And this is a scene where gravity is being manipulated by Matthew McConaughey, I guess. So to me, this anamorphic look is where things are a little bit subjective, you know, where there's like, they talk about like the fifth dimension where the beings who created the Tesseract are. That's the anamorphic lens to me feels like the fifth dimension. It's kind of like where things are distorting and we don't really quite understand what's happening. Things are a little bit hard to see. They're obscured. It's very subjective, like a memory, versus like this is just clear as day. Still shallow depth of field, but it's like more of the frame, just a high resolution. You know, I start to get that feeling where like this is more like the fifth dimension ethereal look. Here we are on Iceland, or in wherever Matt Damon planet. He's just cracked his screen. And what's interesting to me here is that there's this whole over dialogue voiceover that Matt Damon gives him. And he's like, when you die, what they say is like what you see as you're dying is your kids. And he's asking him, he's like, do you see it? Do you see your children? Which I thought was really interesting as we get to the Tesseract scene. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm just pronouncing it how I've heard it. I have no idea how you spell it. Matt Damon kills a bunch of people, tries to kill him. He gets away clearly. And now they're going to get him. And this is a beautiful shot from that sequence. And they catch up to him eventually. Matt Damon kills himself by trying to improperly get into the space station. He blows it open and the whole thing just like explodes. Oh, I said effing. I'm going to have to bleep that out. And here's a scene with the fire where she goes and sets off a fire to distract her brother. And a shot of them trying to dock with this spinning station. Again, just kind of like, you know, two very desperate situations here to set something on fire and to try to dock with this moving station here. So we're moving into Act 5. Act 5 is really the main last act of this whole movie, or this breakdown rather. So they redock and they have a plan. They're going to jump into the the number of times I've heard slingshot around a black hole or a planet has been a lot lately. I'm just like, oh yeah, I could have thought of that. That's what we do. Cool shot of TARS or Case. I guess this is TARS. I love these robots. And they're going into the black hole. It's a slingshot around it. And one thing I wanted to say about this, and people who criticize Chris Nolan, it's like, who really? You can't criticize Chris Nolan. I'm gonna talk about some of the lighting here that I feel like is a little bit weird, and then who am I to talk about that with Hoyte, you know, of course. But with some of these scenes, I felt sort of disconnected with the lighting from the outside to the inside. They felt very different to me. And I feel like other movies have tied it together more. Like, look at the light source on his, is like, if we look at the shadow quality, that's very, feels like one light, which I get, which is the sun. But he's in this kind of environment where the entire floor and this entire, even though it's like it's a huge blanket of light. I feel like the lighting coming through would be softer. You know, I didn't feel like this was the lighting coming through there. I thought that was kind of weird. And I honestly felt I love this movie and I love everything about it, especially the robots. But the lighting inside the ship, it was in the outs. I felt a disconnect there. And I wonder if a better virtual production solution for them would have been to show Hoyte just how this whole scene was going to come together and what was outside the window. I feel like the lighting didn't match that great. I think this is a scene where they were actually there were some scenes where they had practical screens out here, like some projections, and I think some of the movie could have used a little bit more of this. Like, I feel like this is more interactive. Like, that's actually a screen outside the camera. Some of that blue light makes it into here. See how there's blue light there? And maybe the light hitting him is a little bit warm in the reflection of his helmet. Here I feel very sterile. Like, I don't feel a reflection of the background. I don't feel like the environment lighting matches as much. This matches a lot better to me. I'm sensitive to that sort of thing, especially because I do CG and real world lighting now. I think this is as he's going into the black hole and he goes into the Tesseract. This is a beautiful scene. I thought this was actually going to be the cover photo. Very like Space Odyssey 2001. And so he's in the Tesseract now, and he's looking through all these basically bookshelves. Which this is beautiful. I mean, this is beautiful, and this space that's been created by some fifth dimensional being or something is basically they represent time in this one space, her room, in a three-dimensional space. So like as he goes to different spaces, it's different points in time, and that's just the coolest thing ever. And we're, again, with our extreme, like, this is like taking the anamorphic Panavision setting and turning it to 1,000, turning it to 110% or whatever, turning it to 11. That's the Spinal Tap. You're turning it from 10 to 11. This is the 11. If you had to make a Panavision look in post, it's, you know, the chromatic aberration. This is called blooming. The depth of field. Actually, these don't look oval. Why aren't they oval? Maybe there's something weirder. Maybe they're distorting it this way. Maybe they're distorting it this way. I don't know. But it's very flary. And again, it's like the gravitational fifth dimensional being lens. That's why you've all loved Panavision for so long. You love it because it's the fifth dimensional beings telling you to love it. That's why you love it. I figured it out. Panavision lenses. I figured out your magic. You guys are ahead of your time. Here's him looking through the bookshelf, and that's what he's seeing. Beautiful use of everything. I mean, just such a beautiful metaphor for time. And they actually built this set, which is incredible. There's definitely going to be some post extensions, but this is just so cool. Like, each one of these is the same space, just different points in time. That's just so cool. Here's a set photo to break the illusion. I know this kind of kills it, but I thought these were cool set photos of how they actually shot this thing. You know, like they went and built these. I'm sure they designed it in 3D, but here's a Chapman flight head or G3 with the IMAX camera on it, overslung on a Super Techno 50, I would guess. And they're actually shooting this stuff, you know. Chris Nolan talks about not wanting green screen, and I guess historically, talking to some of his VFX people, he doesn't shoot with a lot of green screen. So much of this is miniatures, like the spaceships, and so much of it is practical, you know, and very little is being done with adding completely CG backgrounds and that sort of thing. Here's a wide of the set. Kind of a simple set overall. Seems like things are rigged to move, like that might move around. Like maybe he might even bounce light into it, I don't know. Here's the main set, and the crane comes up and looks through back here. Pretty awesome. I wonder what all these people are doing. Everyone's looking up at them. Looking at some of the lighting. They have like definitely a lot of this side image 80 lighting type stuff going on. And then just, I guess, like really big light sources just bouncing around the room and kind of hitting him. Pretty cool. I like this scene. Again, we kind of have like these window sources, which we kind of saw are these image 80s, I think, over here, or Luma panels. They feel like windows, and I think that we're using a lot of window lights in here. I think that's it for the B-roll. Here's him looking back in time, where he's giving the coordinates, and he's typing them out in Morse code by interrupting gravity. Standard stuff. big old image 80 reflection here. Again, feels like a window. This eye light is like always a revelation when we have the eye lights in this movie like that, when we really see into their eyes. I feel like they really withhold that in a lot of scenes. Like, you don't have eye lights, you don't see into their eyes. But when you do, it's meaningful, it's impactful. Especially on a big screen, close-ups on a big screen with a big eye light, you see something. There's the light in their eyes. And they're intentional. So the way that you're intentional with eye lights, unlike me, who would put an eye light on everything, I'm like, now you look good. Now you look good. It's like they withhold it. You hold back that feeling that you get from the eye lights. You withhold the eye lights until you want to selectively use it. They do that because they have patience and they're good filmmakers. Here's, I think, as the whole thing is starting to, I think, collapse, right? We have this beautiful flare shot. Again, this is like practical use of lighting and effect, to give an emotional feeling. Very blurry little diopter. I would assume this is a diopter. A close diopter just shifted at an angle would give you this kind of an effect. And then here's as the tesseract starts to collapse. Again, blinded by light. There's just too much light. And I think light always is like the God light. I think that this is, there's always this reference with heaven that it's like the blinding pearly gates of heaven is this blinding light. And I think that's what's kind of happening here. It's like he's kind of like dying or something like that and going to heaven. And just more heaven light floating around ethereally in space. And then he kind of dies, Lazarus, he dies and he comes back to life. Spoiler. But we see him die in the light. There's actually, I had a shot of this before, where it's this flare that starts in camera and then moves away. And they talk about how Chris Nolan is, likes to really stay in a shot. And, very intentional use of this flare that goes away, and it's kind of like the life in him leaving. It's like he kind of dies after going through the black hole. Or not. So he wakes up and they found him floating around Saturn. So basically the black hole pooped him back out into Saturn, out of the black hole, and just started floating him through space after going through the tesseract. I'm supposed to buy that. Inception, like another scene in Inception where like the road kind of flows up. You got to pull that one back out. It just looks cool because they're on a satellite. It's like Halo. If you ever played the Halo video game, very much like that. They rebuilt farmland and they're planting and they're using the sun. Coolest shot ever, right? The sun still, but they're orbiting around Saturn now instead, around the black hole, to grow these crops. And because it's spinning, they have gravity. I guess. I don't know. I don't know if I ever want to live in a world where this is what's going on. I feel like with Elon Musk, this might be coming up soon. I don't know about this. Pretty flary, beautiful, weird, like where's the horizon? Well, I guess the horizon's actually up here, technically, for the shot. But there really is no horizon. It's just like this circular horizon. So this is like just an amazing shot. Let's just like throw it away. Just throw this shot away like it's nothing. Beautiful. Here's that shot at sunset. Just so cool. At this point, we're just talking about cool stuff. The movie's over. Happy ending. He survived. He gets to meet his daughter, who's become this hero and save the world, or not the world, save the people on the world. And they live in this terraformed space station. Cool oval bokeh in the background. CG oval bokeh means you have a good visual effects supervisor. And Interstellar 2, it's like go save Brand. Because she has all of the human cells are little. They're going to repopulate the Earth somehow, and they have found a somewhat normal looking planet, which is the planet she wanted to go to in the first place, with hills. It looks just like Earth with a sunset. It's just a little bit deserty. Hopefully there's water. Maybe that's water over there. So she's there's no water. It's not like snow and water everywhere. So she's gonna go do build her own colony, and eventually maybe that space station of people won't go there as well. Let's look at this frame again. That is awesome. So that is our look at Interstellar. I'm just gonna take a post Interstellar tea break. My takeaway from this movie and studying and researching Chris Nolan, I wasn't incredibly taken with The Dark Knight. It's fun, obviously, super cool. But the content is, I think, crippled by being a superhero movie, which there's a lot of superhero movies right now. Batman, it's like, oh, my parents, this is going to sound terrible, but it's like, his parents got killed, and now he's like this avenging Batman character, and it's like, Joker's this evil master. He added complexity to it, but there's only so much I think you can give to that. Oh, and wasn't that the shit? Whatever. I'm sorry. Rambling. But this movie is poetry, and I see a lot of influence from 2001, and the use of longer shots, and the use of just visual poetry, which sounds so cheesy. Am I getting old and cheesy? I'm a dad. I'm the old cheesy dad now. If I had said visual poetry to my 20-year-old self, I would have smacked myself in the face. But I'm starting to see it now. It's like holding a shot and giving meaning to that shot. I think when Christopher Nolan is editing and scripting and storyboarding and prevising and shooting, every shot has meaning. Every shot, there's no, and I have a feeling a lot of the edits are in his head already. Like when you cut from one thing to another thing, how he deals with horizon, what the metaphor is, what the visual poetry of the shots are, has meaning. It's not just that like it looks good. Everything in it, from the lighting to the blocking, the acting, everything has this like really nice coherence and meaning to it. And from what I've learned about Chris Nolan from the people who work with him, who probably just want to get hired again and say nice stuff. But, they just say that he comes incredibly prepared, and being prepared, I think that's, and just leading, like having a vision, being prepared, knowing what that is and leading your entire team towards that. I really respect that. That's something that I would look for in a director. It's something that I would want to do if I was directing or shooting or being in that position, is to have a goal, know what it is, and then spend all of my energy communicating that better. Cinedesigner.com. So that's Interstellar. You guys loved that. Oh my God. Oh, let me do one thing. Here. Oh my goodness. I feel like such a jerk. Let me do one thing. Maybe I have to cut this up. Oh, I feel so bad. Right now. Oh my goodness. Where is this? Let me pull it up. Okay, here it is. Oh, I'm sorry. Diana, my wife, put this together. I know a lot of people requested this. I almost forgot. Because these are a lot of work and they're a little bit intense sometimes to put them together. I forget this thing, but I remembered. Oh, I feel so bad. I wish I'd done this in the beginning, but we're doing it now. If you watch the whole thing, congratulations, and you're one of these people. Thank you guys so much for requesting this. I hadn't seen Interstellar. The marketing for it didn't appeal to me. The trailers, I'm like, oh, it's gravity. I get it. They did a mass market push, and honestly, all the marketing about it being an IMAX movie to me was a big turnoff. But I loved this movie, and I loved her. You guys have great taste. Definitely just following your lead on what you're doing. So I'm gonna try to do this real quick. I'm just gonna mispronounce all of your names. Let's just have fun with that. Lurkai, Zion Studios, Kano High, Jordan Whitfield, Land Porpoise, Der Wissenschaftler, Orangel, Bully Black, and Franco Rizzo. Good old Franco Rizzo. You guys, thanks for getting me to watch this. Thank you, Diana, for putting this together. I'm a mess. I'm sorry that I forgot to put this in there. So I'm going to wrap it out with this. Let me know what you guys want to watch next. What I would love to start to do, this is long because my camera's about to run out, so it's super long. What I would love to do is be able to tell you the week before, like I tell you now, like, hey, we're going to go watch X and break this down next time so that you could actually go watch it. And we could watch it together. Go watch the movie if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it for a while, go watch it, and then the breakdown might have more context for you. Or do you like the surprise? Do you like it being Monday? It's like, hey, this is the movie that we're going to do. Actually, I kind of announced it on Sunday on Instagram, but let me know. It's like, would you want me to tell you beforehand so you could go watch it? Or do you like the surprise? It's like, oh, cool, that's what we're going to do. Thanks again for this. Thanks for watching. Interstellar, loved it. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.